Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this, the last day of Women's History Month. My name is Tanya Vital. This is my platform. Before I continue, can somebody in the chat let me know if the audio's all right? Can you hear me properly? Let's get that out of the way before we get too far. Hi, Martel. Martel, can you hear us? Can you see us? Is everything upset? We'll wait. They're on a little bit of a delay. Audio is good. Amazing. Hey, Death Christina. Can you hear test everyone? Can everybody give us a little do re mi so fa? No, I'm joking. Just so that to test your audio. Gemma, can we hear you? Yeah, I think we're good. We hear you. Amazing.
Okay. I hope.
So, this is my platform, Vital Culture. It's a digital arts platform dedicated to championing underrepresented creatives, particularly from the North. We do arts, entertainment, anime, gaming, and now horror. We have had a few episodes over Women's History Month. We had an artist showcase, we had an acting industry chat, we had women in gaming with Geeky Cassie, and tonight we have Women's History in Horror with Dr. Alison Peirse, with Gemma Hurley, and with Sampira. So just to introduce our guests, I'm going to read some of their biographies. So Dr. Alison Peirse.
Hello.
It's from Leeds. Hello, from Leeds. She writes books about horror films. She's drawn to untold stories of women working in film, both in front and behind of the camera. She's got a particular penchant for historical studies. She's an associate professor of film at the University of Leeds and a culture critic. She was a long-time contributor to the hugely popular design portal Pixel Surgeon and has written on films, books and music for Metro, Leeds Guide, Yorkshire Evening Post, National Media Museum. Hey Chevy, what's going on? France Lee, hey, welcome in. She's read scripts for BBC, Screen Yorkshire, Duck Soup and Northern Film Media. She's a script editor of multi-award-winning horror feature film Dark Beacon. She writes fiction when she feels like it. Working across prose, playwriting and screenwriting. She's collaborated with BBC Writers' Room, Penguin Random House and the Royal Court Theatre. Her stage play, Euphoria, was longlisted for the prestigious Bruntwood Prize for Playwriting, and her short story Atmosphere was recently published in the Graveyard Smash anthology. She collaborates with a number of international film festivals on their programming, and she finds festivals quite enjoyable normally when they're not on digital, obviously, because people take her out for dinner. So welcome, Dr. Alison Peirse. Hello.
That's such a good reason to like festivals.
I know, food.
Best bit.
That's the way to my heart. Find the food. Next we have Sampira, who I know as Sammy. She's a producer, curator and writer in theatre and visual arts in the horror genre. Her current projects are an exhibition celebrating the history of black horror. Chevy. Hey! And an exhibition on censorship in horror, and she's co-produced an autobiographical. I can't even say the word. Sammy, please help me. Autobiographical play showcasing migrant journeys to the UK from exploited and war-torn Afghanistan. Welcome, Sampira.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Oh, I'm so excited, girl. I'm so excited. And last but not least, we have Gemma Hurley. Gemma is from London. She's dabbled in theatre and commercials before making the leap to screenwriting. She's drawn to wondrous worlds and dark twisted stories with a lot of heart at their core. Currently, she's writing an episode. Oh, no, I missed out the best bit. Hell. Gemma is the co-writer of the Zoom Lockdown Horror Host, which is currently streaming on Shudder. Get your Shudder subscription. I highly recommend it. With director Rob Savage and co-writer Jed Shepherd, and has written an episode of the upcoming tech horror series Red. She's currently writing an episode for the supernatural crime thriller The Rising, and developing her own projects including the paranormal procedural Tinfoil and retro-futuristic sci-fi Human Happiness Programme. Her is it YA or YA?
YA.
Her YA zombie horror feature, The Rules That Keep Us Safe, landed her in the top 10 female writers for the Nickel Fellowship in 2018. Welcome, Gemma.
Excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hey. So before we get into the heavy stuff, I thought we'd just break the ice, and we've got Jed Shepherd to thank for this, because I basically stalk Jed. We're on Clubhouse, and every horror room that Jed is in, I am in too, and he always hosts a room that's called "What Horror Fucked You Up the Most?" So let's start with
Jed.
that.
This is such classic
Jed. So the way, or if that's a little bit harsh, your gateway into the genre. I saw a clip of Ashley Blackwell, the writer of Horror Noir, and she was talking with Tanana Reeve about when they came out as horror fans. So yeah, if you want to frame it like that, like who wants to go first? What fucked you up the most?
Okay, what fucked me up the most? I have two. So one is a 90s experimental film called Begotten, which is like...
Don't know this. Right,
I don't.
So I think the guy's name is Mahaiga, and he was like a playwright, and he meant it to be a theatre play, but he couldn't get funding for that, so he turned it into a film. And
As you do.
as you do. And like, it's really fucking like atmospheric. There's no dialogue. And it's like, I think it's like an hour and 20 minutes or so. It's all in black and white. It's really like distorted and whatever. And like the first scene is like, he takes you into this shed, and there's a guy that's like completely bound with like bandages and has like this bandage mask over him, and he like cuts his own stomach open.
Yay!
But it's like no dialogue, nothing. So it's just like a soundscape, and it's like, it's so fucking disturbing, like, because it's just like this like pulse in your head. Like it's so mad, and I would love to do it for the theatre, because it would be so immersive, like it'd just be amazing. And then the other one, probably better known, is 120 Days of Sodom, Pasolini's film.
I've not seen it, but I know which one you mean.
It's one of those films that's like, you're so emotionally invested in it. Like when I first watched it, like I had to take a shower afterwards. Like it's filthy, and it's about like Italian. So it's about Italy, like at the end of like its fascist regime, and there's like a group of people that still believe in like the fascism and Mussolini and whatever. So they have like this like mad like castle or whatever that they have, and they kidnap these students, and they're like mad into like sadomasochism. But they like torture them like through the whole film and whatever, and it's like it's very mad. Like, so those are my two that
you were hooked after this.
This is probably a good point to say that I'm like you, Alison. I only like gothic, paranormal, ghosts to find blood. Okay,
but the film that did break me in was Blade. So that's
Blade.
Good. Where I was like, yeah.
You see, there's blood and then there's blood. Blade blood, good. Sodom blood, bad. No. Amazing. All right, who wants to go next? What fucked you up the most?
Gemma, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, Gemma.
What fucked me up? Jesus, I think it was probably the first horror film I accidentally saw when I was about 8, which was it was something. It's Invaders from Mars, the 50s version, and it was a film that I didn't know what it was until Jed Shepherd told me what it was. I was like, Jed, there's this film, and I don't know. It like ruined my life. What is it? And I had to explain all the different like facets of it. So all I could remember was there's, it's beautiful. People keep going off into the distance and like falling down somewhere and disappearing, and then there's all these like aliens under the ground who are like doing mind control on these beautiful women who have been like held in men's arms in the 1950s, of course, like all passed out. It just really, really got to me. It was something about the tone of it, or the because it was all those beautiful 1950s sound stages they had. It felt like a dream or a nightmare, and I wasn't sure if it was real. But I just remember the feeling of, oh God, something horrible's happening, and I don't know what I'm watching.
What was the film called?
Invaders from Mars.
It was Invaders from Mars.
The 1950s version, not the remake. And it's got I watched it recently after Jed told me what it was, and it was like, it's like everything's so optimistic and colourful, and it's all like, come on Jimmy, like we can stop the aliens, and it's all just like, oh bless you. But yeah, it fucked me up as a child, so there we go.
Oh, amazing. I see you, Bye Buff. Bye Buff thought you were going to say Jesus fucked you up there. I thought I was throwing up for years after Brain Dead, a zombie film. Okay, all right, I'll catch up with that in a bit. Harlequin. Alison, what fucked you up the most?
Well, I think it's because you think about, like, for me, like, horror being a kid, because, like, I am, like, a kind of wuss these days. Like, I don't like stuff that's, like, nasty. Like, I had to rewatch In My Skin recently. It's, like, a French new extreme film from 2002 where Marina Devan just, like, eats herself. And I had to rewatch it for work, as you do. But as a rule, I try and avoid these things. And the thing that probably fucked me up most was when I was a kid, and my mum always watched loads of horror and science fiction and fantasy. And one Sunday afternoon, we all watched Legend. I don't know if...
Yes! Oh my God.
Hang on, which one are we talking about here? The one with the zombies or the one with the unicorns?
The one with the unicorn. And
with the sexy Tim Curry Satan.
Yeah. Yes! And I was completely traumatised because I could not get Tim Curry as a completely red Satan out of my head. And I'm sure they killed a unicorn or a unicorn.
They do.
It didn't die, it came back to life, didn't it? But
good.
Those horns were huge. They were like legs. They were, yeah, that was scary.
The bit where he steps out of the mirror and it's all sexual. Satan.
I found that fairly traumatic. That was an entry level trauma for the start of the horror genre for me.
Well, it's funny because funny and weird. I think that kind of era, because we were all on VHS.
Yeah.
I remember I wasn't scared of the film when I saw it, but I do remember being scared of the cover for Legend because he just looked terrifying.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna show the audience what fucked me up the most.
Ooh.
Let me know if you can still hear me, guys. So yeah. Oh, by the way, yeah, we've got prizes tonight, kids. Prizes. You have to be following the channel, and you have to use your name so that I know who to send the prizes to. But we've got a copy of a limited edition copy of the Blu-ray version of Host, and a copy of Women Make Horror by Dr. Alison Peirse.
Yeah.
Hold on, Alison. I'll let you show it in a minute. This is one of the things that fucked me up the most. So this is actually a poster from Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden. Thank you for the follow, Yearning John. Iron Maiden's mascot. I don't know, Eddie. I think it's called.
Yeah.
My cousin had a poster of this in his bedroom, and this was like just terrifying for me. So that's one of the things. Pinhead was also something that fucked me up as a kid.
Best creature design.
Because just the terrifying image, but also, I mean, I should never have been watching this as a kid. Let me come back to the camera just to explain. But when I did finally watch it as a kid, which I probably shouldn't have done, the idea of, I mean, I've not been back to see it since, but the idea of you choose your own hell. As a kid, that was, I don't want to think of anything. If I think of something, that's going to be my hell. Like, yeah, too much.
Do you know what's scary? What is scarier than Pinhead is Frank in that film when he's like,
Hellraiser.
So he's like the guy, like Frank is like the guy that comes back to life, right? And there's like that shot where he's like just muscle and he's all like slimy and wet, and and he's like, he says something so creepy. He's like, "Hey, sweetheart," and like he's got like, and he puts his shirt on, and like the blood's coming through his shirt, and like whatever. Just such good special effects in that film, like unrivaled.
Funnily enough, they're making a new series of Hellraiser, and I'm not scared of it anymore. So whoever's casting that, hey. But there's one other thing that Jed mentions all the time, and I'm an 80s kid. This is one of the things. So let's just give the audience a little bit of this bad boy, known as Ghost Watch.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Came out in the 90s. Was shown on Halloween night. It was, I guess, the very first. What would you call it? Like live.
Yeah, it's like an event TV.
Yeah, event TV. And they played it as if it was live and it was happening, and it was that scary that it was banned for 10 years or something. But before it was banned, our school thought it was right and fit to show us it.
Nice. What a school!
So
Amazing.
we watched it on Halloween.
Yeah, because it was on Halloween night, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Pipes. Oh my god. Let me just turn that off before we leave it on. So we got to see it twice, and that old pipes just fucked me up. Like I don't know. I could not be at home on my own after a while for that. Audience, just to remind you, we are still raising money for Sisters Uncut. You can type into the chat !sisters, and you can donate straight to their PayPal there. The Sisters Uncut raise money for women who self-identifying women in domestic violence situations. So please, if you can donate, please donate to Sisters Uncut. You can Gemma, Sampira, Alison, to find out all about their biographies and prizes. If you want to see what the prizes are, prizes. All right, so let's get into the meat and bones of it all. Alison, the first question, I guess, is what inspired you to write your book, Women Make Horror? What was the problem that you felt your book was the solution for?
It was quite simply that I think it was somewhere around 2015, 2016. I really wanted to read a book about women who worked in horror film, and there were lots of books out there that were about the actors, but I wanted to know about the writers and the producers and the directors, and they were never talked about in all the horror books that I read. And I looked around for this book and it didn't exist. So I thought, well, I guess I'm going to have to just do it then. Because I know, it's my job. I've got a PhD in horror. I do know a fair bit about horror, but you can't know everything ever. So I decided to make it a collection. So, an essay collection with 16 other contributors from around the world. So each chapter's written by a different woman and all about different kinds of horror. And I thought that's the only way I'm going to get a kind of basic foundational knowledge of what women have been doing in the horror genre. There's no way I can do it myself. It's too big. Even now, after the first book, I could write another 10 books and just scratch the surface on it. So it's because there was nothing out there. And I know that women have been working in horror since the silent era. So it's not just that they're not doing it, they're just not written about. So then I went on my little crusade and did my book.
So just to quote some, I guess they're not stats, but just a section from your book, talking about horror critics. In Hollywood Horror, I guess is that a magazine or a book? It's a book, right? Hollywood Horror.
Oh, is it in the thing I was writing at the beginning? Chair. Oh yeah, that's the book. Director's Chair. All the interviewees are men. In Anatomy of Fear, conversations with cult horror and science fiction film creators, all 21 are men. Hey Jade, welcome in. In his 867-page compendium horror film directors, Dennis Fisher lists 52 major directors, all men, and 48 promising, obscure or hack directors. And from 100 of those, there is just one woman who is in the hack category, and that's Stephanie Rothman. Which is quite. It's a lot when you. We know this because we're women. We experience marginalisation all the time. But when you see it on paper, it's quite a lot to take in because I don't know. You just. Even for me, when I thought about doing this episode, I was like, yeah, we'll do women's history in horror. And then when I started reading your book, I was like, actually, all my references are all male. This is terrible. Yeah, but mine were too. I write about it in the book that when I got my very first job, as a lecturer, and I put together a horror film course at the first place that I worked at the University of Hull, and it was like greatest hits of horror, basically from the 1930s to the present day. And nearly all the films, all the films were directed by men, but nearly all of them had like all male teams, and it just wasn't even something like I'd even thought about at the time. It's just that I'd kind of taken for granted that it was men who were doing it. And it wasn't till I've got a bit further on in my career and got a bit more like bolshy and a bit more interested in, I don't agree with this. Yeah. I don't think so. That's the point that I've really started to dig into it. Like, I just found out the other day, this is my level of geekiness. Like, I just found out the other day, there's a very obscure Japanese horror film from 1963 called Matango, Attack of the Mushroom People, right? And I've just found out it was edited by a woman. And I was like, yes, another one to go in my next project. Yes. And
I'm writing this as we speak.
Yeah, and Matango, Attack of the Mushroom People.
I need to see this film.
Yes,
it's interesting. But it's just finding all these women who just pop up. They tend to be either if it's really old, they tend to be either screenwriters or editors. Like, it's rare to get directors, but they just pop up. They pop up occasionally, and I grab them and I take them for my histories.
No, it's great. I mean, as I mentioned before, your book is like an encyclopedia, and I know, like you even say in the book, there's still more to be found. But it's a good starting place. It's a really good starting place. All right, so again, a general question out to all of you, but just to frame it, from Clubhouse again, from our horror rooms in Clubhouse, Alex Neuer says that the reason people do horror is because grief spawns demons. So just to throw that question out to you all, like, why horror? Why do women like it, in your opinion? Why do women make the horror that they do? To quote your book, Alison, what do we get out of it? Who wants to go first? Anyone, jump in.
I don't mind jumping in.
Yeah, go.
Oh, sorry, Sampira.
No, go.
I think that's a really interesting quote. I think for me, yes, grief is an interesting one because definitely lends itself to a kind of supernatural horror story. But there's also the other elements of rage, and women be able to claim their anger, I think, or their nasty, uncomfortable side, which we're not necessarily, historically at least, been allowed to express in society. And, in a lot of historic horror, we know that women are usually the kind of object, the victim or whatever. But I think what's interesting for me in horror is being able to flip that and having, women as claiming their rage or claiming their monster. And it's quite an exciting time. I think films like Raw are a classic example of how that can be done. So yeah.
Yeah. Sammy?
I think especially like black women and like black mixed women, I think we have like that thing of the experience of a woman and being gaslit about our experiences of women, but also our experiences of racism as well, and being gaslit on that layer as well. So I feel like, and that every time we turn on the fucking TV, there's like another black person's died in police custody, or there's another black child missing, but they don't get any coverage, but we're still looking for Madeleine McCann. Like all these things that we go through every single day. So I feel like when we come into horror, I think it's everything that Gemma said, but then it's also almost like a break of like, oh, we're going to see somebody else get killed, or like go through fear, or like all those different things. So I feel like for us, it is that escapism, but it's also like this duality of like escapism, but also like we can relate to that because so it works on these two levels where it's a safe space for us to channel trauma, whether that's like losing friends in the prison system, losing friends to police, losing friends to mental health, because the black community, like mental health is still a massive thing in the black community and the black mixed community because of all the things that we can't talk about or that are sort of like negated for us. So I think it works on those two levels of like you can escape and be a hero, and you can go through like, I mean, Get Out's a great example. Like Like, you can go through the escapism of that film, that Chris makes it to the end, and it's not the police, and it's his best friend, and they ride into the sunset.
Ending though. Woo!
Yeah, of course. Like, that ending that like turned every fucking cinema into a football stadium, because we were like, oh my god. But also like that film is in its escapism, it's also so fucking real. And then there's like that duality of like, oh shit, we know where this is going to go, and then that thankfulness and that catharsis of, oh my god, he's given us a happy ending.
That was an alternative ending, wasn't it?
The original was really like grim, but it would have been the most it would have been
realistic,
the most realistic ending. So I think definitely, I think that's it. I think for us it's like an escape, but it's also a way to just channel all the things that we feel on an everyday basis that we're gaslit about constantly.
Alison, do you want to jump in on this?
I'm kind of in agreement with both Gemma and Sammy, really. Like, for me, like, I get, because I've always done horror, everyone's always like, but why horror? Or why as a woman, how can you do horror when, you know, it's just women being victims and men being monsters? And like, give over, it's not all like that. Give over. But for me, like, it's not always necessarily about catharsis. For me, it is a form of escape. Like, a really good horror film, for example, Host, is very, very entertaining, and I want entertaining, and I want the kind of horror film where it's like getting on a roller coaster and you strap in and you're going to be off, and I love the escapism. But also then what Gemma was saying about rage, that idea that I love watching the women in it with really active emotions, and I feel like it's not a passive victim thing for me watching it. I love watching women like behaving really fucking badly, you know, really badly. I love I recently watched Saint Maud and The Stylist and 12-Hour Shift, and they've all got women who arguably behaving pretty badly, and I find so much joy in watching these women like not do what they're supposed to do.
Saint Maud's a good one for that.
Yeah, exactly. And just being really bad. Like, I love it.
So a few things there. I agree with all points. I think the reason I tell my therapist, because I'm in therapy, girl, I'm in therapy. I say to her, I like horror, and she's like, why? And I say, because it makes me. I always joke and I say it's because I'm dead inside, but turn that around. Like, the reality of that is it makes me feel something. Is what I think I mean. And just to go back to the book, this is why Dr. Alison's book is the Marxist manifesto we didn't know we needed, ladies, or men who can also be feminists.
Of course they can.
Absolutely. Robin Wood. A quote from your book, Robin Wood, in his book, I think, writes, horror films can radically undermine the status quo of bourgeoisie capitalism, explored through Marxist dominant ideology, and the patriarchal heterosexual nuclear family, explored through Freudian psychoanalysis. In particular, he argued that central to the effect of and fascination of horror films is their fulfillment of our nightmare wish to smash the norms that oppress us, and which our moral conditioning teaches us to revere. And that is this is my life.
Yes.
You just absolutely. Put my whole life. This is why I love horror so much. I'm obsessed. I watch it every day. It's my favourite genre. And this is why, because it's me symbolically smashing my oppression, I guess. That really spoke to me, did that.
It's fantastic. And Robin Wood was writing that in the 70s, and he was writing it out of like activism and coming out of the Gay Liberation Front and the Black Rights Movement, and he was trying to respond to that big social activism that was going on in the 70s and saying, horror is a place where we can do this. You know, and his stuff kind of got left behind. So I've been trying to pick it back up again recently and go, hey, people, as you've just said, Tanya, there's stuff here that's quite relevant. You know,
very much so now.
There's stuff here that chimes.
Particularly because, like, in the book, you talk about the kind of emergence, I guess, of women horror filmmakers around the noughties era, coming out of the Blair era, coming out of the Cool Britannia era, when feminism was over and activism was unfashionable, but now we're finding that we're needing that activism again, and so I'm really excited to see kind of what horror films come out of this.
And I think
tumultuous time.
Just horror as a genre, even if like the particular film you're watching isn't political, horror as a genre is political, especially in Britain, because Britain has always been like British culture, and this like British politeness and this British sort of stiff upper lip that we're known for is highly weaponized, so that we don't talk about the way that things are in the country or the country's dark past of like colonialism and all those kind of things. So whenever like there's like a rise like there is now in like we've got a Tory government now, like it's all authoritarian, blah blah. The last time we had this was when the video nasties list was done. So horror is always targeted as, we must censor this, like the working classes can never see this, like they'll think that it's this and they'll rise up and they'll do this. They'll be murderers because they're too stupid to know that it's a film and it was done on a set, like so there's constantly like this classism of like what can we as working class people consume, and really what it's about is what are the consequences of us consuming horror, which is a very honest genre about the darker sides of humanity and how we deal with all our darker emotions, and what are the consequences of that for the bourgeoisie if that empowers us.
Yeah, exactly.
Said like a pro.
Right, you need to write a book.
I was just going to jump on that and do a shout out to Prano Bailey Bond, who's doing Censor the Film about the Video Nasties era. Female director coming out this year, like did really well in Sundance. Check it out when it's out.
Yeah, I am so excited to see Censor. Can't wait.
Me too. I've got so many notes, audience, please. If I'm not responding to some of the comments in chat, it's because I'm trying to be attentive to my guests, and if I've not seen your question, there will be a chance for questions near the end, so please hold on to that. I'm not ignoring you, and I appreciate you and thank you for being here. All right, so let's talk about some of those barriers to what are the barriers that women face in the genre.
With tig old biddies.
Thank you for the bits, Katie, biggest Medusa. Thank you so much. So the barriers to women's authorship. I mean, we've spoke about it a little bit, but some of the things for filmmakers in particular, whether that be writers or let me just give an example of what I mean. I guess on one hand, it's been said that it's easier to make horror because it's lower budget and it's got a wide appeal. It's easier to rise up through the ranks and easier to take some risks. But on the other hand, it's fraught with creative censorship and control. Barbara Peters, as one example, who made Humanoids from the Deep, made her film, and then it was deemed that it wasn't violent and rapey enough. So when she refused to add those violent bits, somebody else made those and were added to her film, and her name was still tied to it. So so some of the barriers that I guess in your own experiences rather than other people, if you've faced any. In the genre, even if it's just a little thing, like like we say, like why people are like, oh, horror, why'd you do that?
Yeah, I think there's definitely that, but then like for me it's like, oh, why horror? And it's like because it's the only thing that makes me happy creatively. Sci-fi. So I was like, I'm not going to be miserable and like remake Shakespeare every, like, do you know what I mean? Like, so I think when you get over that, and you're like, no, horror, like I fucking wake up in the morning and I think about horror. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like, that's never really been a thing for me because I'm like, well, go and write Hamlet again. Like, but I do think there's like there's a really key thing of like, there's a vision of you before you've even walked into the fucking room and said what you're going to do. Like, so... And a lot of that is so generalized, like it is that thing of like, oh, well, you're a woman in horror, you're probably going to write about this, or you're going to write about this, or you're going to write about this. So
Twilight, you're going to write about Twilight.
You're going to write about Twilight, you're going to write about Twilight, or we're going to have another Jennifer's Body, which is amazing, but Jennifer's Body has been done. You know, so there's all these assumptions, and especially like if you go in as like a black woman or a black mixed woman, there's further assumptions about what you're going to write about. So, and if you deviate from those assumptions, they don't know what to fucking do with it. So, so you do, like, so, you know, if you go in and you're like, actually, I really want to make like an experimental film about like Jewish folklore, they're like, what the hell? Like, what? You know what I mean? And like, I still think there is this thing of, they assume that you're going to go in and want to write a film like I Spit on Your Grave, or there is still that assumption. And when you're like, well, no, actually, like I'd like to write about, you know, a woman and her mental health and how she, you know, how she overcomes that, and it'll all be surreal. They're like, because they have assumptions about what exactly they want and how they want women to be in films, and if you deviate from that, then their heads just explode. So that's like a huge barrier. Some Katie Biggest Medusa's just bought your book, Alison. Excited to read about. So just to add a little bit of spice to this then, Sammy, because this was going to be my next question, but I think it's the same thing. Like Dr. Alison talks about, yes, your book is a feminist book, but not everybody who makes horror comes at it from a feminist position, but it's almost automatically put on a woman who's a filmmaker in general, whether that be horror or whatever, that you're making a feminist point, I guess. Absolutely. I think that's a huge assumption as well, and like, or a political point, or like absolutely. And I think as like a black or black mixed woman, that's instantly put on you like this, that, oh, it's going to be political, and this is going to be about police brutality, or it's going to be on this. And it's like, actually, no, like I wanted to write about, like, I wanted to do the next Killer Clowns from Outer Space. So there's like this, there's like this thing, this sort of box that they try and put you in, which also can take away your autonomy. And like, of course there should be feminist horror, like, of course, and like, of course a lot of like work is political or has political undertones. Mine does as well, but that also doesn't mean that like I don't want to sometimes sit down and just make like a completely surreal fantasy, and you should be able to do both, because men can, like, men I was just
gonna say, I feel like Jordan Peele with Us, I think because people saw Get Out and then they saw Us and they didn't know what to do with it, because they were like, well, what is he saying about race? He's not saying anything. He must be saying something.
No, he was talking about class, if anything. And that was...
I love Us. I love it. I love it even more than Get Out, because it's just weirder. I love it. It's really weird. Like, that's and obviously all the Lost Boys references, but I just love the weirdness of it, all these little touches of complete random shit that just make it amazing.
And it's completely different from Get Out. So he's made a choice as an artist to go, Get Out's done, I'm going to make something completely different now. And he's had freedom to do that. But I feel like for women, they can get stuck in like that one film or that one play, and like they write it and it's really successful, or like whatever, and then wherever they go, they're like, oh, do you know that play that you wrote, or like that film?
Do another one of those.
Do another one of those. Like, and it happens to women a lot. So then there's sort of like, unless you push against that and go, well, no, I'm going to write this, I want to write something completely different, you can have a career where you've just done like, and it's not a bad thing, but you get stuck in doing an iteration of the same thing when really...
Gemma, do you feel like after the massive success of Host, have you felt, let's not try and burn any bridges, because we're still making commissions, I'm sure, but have you felt a pressure to make Host 2 or something like that?
No, we're doing something completely different.
Amazing.
Completely different. And I feel, sorry, I've been finding this conversation really fascinating, because I'm not, I know Host is my credit that's out at the moment, it's a film, but I'm a TV writer, and I'm listening quite interested, because I don't really know how much of what we're talking about is, because I feel that the British film industry, as I understand it, don't really make that much genre, and I mean that like horror, sci-fi, fantasy,
Totally.
and that's just a problem in itself that we've got to like, you know, regardless of our gender or sexuality or class, whatever, we just don't. We seem to be snobby about it, or is it risk averse? I don't know why.
Yeah.
Is it because the people in Britain who make the choices compared to the people in America who make the choices are, you know, people who went to Oxbridge and did like classics and English literature degrees, whereas America it's more commercial driven. I don't know what the answer is, and I know we have a wonderful history of making horror in this country. We kind of dropped off the radar a little bit. It feels like it might be coming back a little bit now. Last year was like there were so many great horror films out from Britain, and I wonder. I mean, to Sammy, I don't know the types of people you've been speaking to. If it sounds like it's mainly film you're talking about, isn't it?
Like film, like visual art, so like exhibitions and theatre, and the theatre would probably be like the most elitist about it.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Yeah.
So do you feel like, is it like a kind of multifaceted? I guess I can only speak from Britain perspective. Like, do you feel like it's mainly like a problem in our country, or do you think it's more a gender thing, or what's your take?
I'll just quickly jump in, just because I'm like a clubhouse head now, because of the horror rooms. But there's a lot of prominent horror people from America in those rooms. There's very rarely any British people. There's probably me, Jed, and maybe, because it's all like 4:00 in the morning. But they just seem so much more up for doing like crazier stuff. They're passionate about it. They take it seriously. There's a culture there, whereas here I find that we've lost that, I think, and there is a bit of snobbery. I think
there's definitely a snobbery, like a huge like a huge snobbery, which then just permeates through like everything. Also, I think that we do have people in this country that are really like passionate about horror and would absolutely do it, but we have no infrastructure like America does, or like production houses over here that will, like Blumhouse and like people like that, where we would do it. It's all the BFI, and if the BFI has certain attitudes about horror, then we're fucked, because you know, they have funding like the majority of the funding, unless you're going to crowdfund. So I do think in the horror community anyway, like I haven't really dipped my toes into the horror community, because I do think that there's also gatekeeping that goes on in the horror community as well. Massively. So then I think that puts a lot of creators off anyway. So I think there are creators out there, but they might just not, they don't feel welcome in like places like the BFI to make their stuff, but they also don't feel welcome in their own communities. So I think there's like a huge disconnect as well.
I agree.
And starting points harder. Yeah,
so starting projects are harder, and I think in a way, like, it's a really complex thing of like, yes, there's no funding, or, you know, there aren't, like, the BFI doesn't want to fund things, but also there's so many disconnects in the community that artists aren't getting together for projects to go for the funding. So it's like this like double thing.
Sorry, Gemma, please go on.
Oh no, I was just gonna, I think this is such an interesting point, and I don't know what it is about our culture where we don't really have this kind of entrepreneurial I mean, I think, to be fair, you said it, Sammy, about we don't really have it's set up, like, and I think that's about the way that funding films is done in this country, because, like, you know, let's be honest, like, Host it should have been a British production, but it wasn't. The next film we're doing is not a British production, it's a Blumhouse production, and so on and so on and so on. All of the TV I'm doing is funded by mainly America. What is wrong with us? Like, why essentially, I don't understand. And I don't know, I don't think this, I feel very lucky. I've heard so many of these awful stories about female creators, and I see that happening. I feel I'm being very lucky, and I've mostly avoided that. But I'm just really I want us to be proud of the shit we make here. And like having more people to have the opportunity. And I think a lot of that is, you know, to some extent, it's definitely a gender thing, but I think there's also a barrier to entry with class, I suppose, that we touched on. I think you guys were touching on us as well.
Massively. And I think a lot of people, I mean, not even a gender thing, like a class thing, great example, like Daniel Kaluuya. So he's one of our best actors, one of the best actors working today. And he's now winning like Rising Star Awards and whatever. He's been in the industry since like at least 2007, 2008.
Yeah,
like
no such thing as an overnight success.
Yeah, like I remember him like the Young Vic. I remember him as Posh Kenneth on Skins, and he was writing like episodes and whatever. But in this country, you can only get to a certain place, and then you have to make the decision. Do you carry on as you're going, or do you try and make it in America?
That's why I'm leaving. I'm out of here. My visa process is halfway through.
And then unfortunately, in this country, regardless of gender, you have to go to America for your own country and do well there for your own country to give a shit about you. So now he's done like Get Out, he's done Widows and Judas and the Black Messiah. Now Britain loves him and it's like, oh my God, this rising star. It's like, my geez. He's been here for like 11 years. He
wasn't supported when he needed to be by the country.
And I think that's the thing, is that a lot of us get to that sort of like crossroads if you have the privilege of getting to that crossroad.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Like, and then we're kind of like, oh shit, like, do I go to America or do I stay here and try and build something here? Which is what I'm trying to do. I've just made the decision that I'm going to stay here and try and build something.
I'm too old.
Yeah, I can't be dealing with America.
Got to go. My eggs are dying. All right, so Gemma, people really like, you get this question all the time. I know I've been stalking your interviews, but people are so interested to know how the process of making hosts, like what, because it was quite an unusual process, right?
Oh yeah, for me as well.
We're in lockdown, and so tell us a little bit about that. In fact, before you tell us a little bit about that, let me just show the audience a little clip here we have of Host, an amazing film, highest grossing film in 2020, highest grossing horror film in 2020.
Was it?
I think so,
yeah. I love her so much. I'm gonna write. It's gonna open my next book.
What?
Have you ever done anything like this before?
I'm writing a new book about horror, and I'm going to use Host to open it because I really like it.
Oh, thank you, Alison.
It is brilliant.
Oh, thank you, guys.
Nothing's going to happen.
It really struck
It was so scary. I don't know. It was so scary. Do you know what? That's just a little clip there, guys. It really reminded me that you can see the Ghost Watch inspiration.
How much we stole.
Which probably came from no, but I mean,
we've owned it. We own
style,
it.
Like, if we continue to capture what the essence is of whatever that essence is, like that's the style. That's us. That's British.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved it, and it was the stuff for me that really rang true with Host, not just because everyone's on Zoom, but it was all the little bits of conversation between them. There was one bit that had been really tense, and then one of them was like, oh, I'm really sweaty.
Oh, yeah. It's Caroline.
And I'm like, yes,
you would be sweaty.
Yeah.
This is what I love, just that sense of, oh, look at your hair, it's so good, and just all that kind of, the little chitter-chatter that you get between people who are actually friends, and I absolutely love it.
Well, thank you, Alison. Thank you. I mean, the thing is, I can't take too much credit because, I mean, those actresses, for anyone who doesn't know, they were already friends before that movie was done. And for a bit of background on how it all came about, it was like the first month of lockdown. They were all mates. They'd done lots of short films together. And the director, Rob Savage, decided to do like a prank on his mates on Zoom. So he did this thing really smart where he put his phone in like a slot and like went up into the attic and got like a zombie to jump out at him while he was on the Zoom call. And it's like, ha ha ha, hilarious. And then put it online, thought nothing of it. And then it kind of blew up.
I remember seeing it.
Oh, did you at the time?
Yeah. I remember seeing it when it went viral. I was like, this is genius.
Amazing. Because I saw it as well. I was like, oh, those fuckers, they've like done something in lockdown. And I'm just sitting here like eating my weight in bread. And so off the back of that, they got loads of offers for like, Jesus, the film and TV industries might be shutting down. Can you make dear God, make something. And then, they got quite a few offers on the table. One of them was from a British film company, but I think they ended up going to Shudder in the end because they just moved so quickly. And then I got brought on. I was with them developing it for like 2 weeks. Like that's it. There wasn't time to do a script. It was time to like. Insane. We made like a 17-page document. We figured out like we did a practice séance with the cast and a real medium to like see how they would react, just to kind of see what was natural. And then it was just down to like, okay, shit, what's the hierarchy of this friendship? We didn't want to give them tropes, but like because it was going to be like a sort of, originally it was meant to be like a 40-minute film, and it ended up being like nearly an hour. But it was like, we don't have time for backstory in these characters. All we need to know is like we need something to recognize each one of them with, understand their dynamic, and understand what there is a sort of tension between Hayley and Gemma. And that was just like, go start filming. Like, and that, it was literally almost as bare bones as that. And all of the wonderful witty dialogue and all of those natural moments you're talking to is just like the talent of those actresses. They are just, they are like that. Obviously, they've been exaggerated or toned down or like slightly twisted, but they're just so talented. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen when you do something like that. And the whole film took like 12 weeks to make, and at the end of it was just like, wow, this so surpassed any of my expectations of what this could have possibly have been. It felt like we got away with something, I'm super proud of all of them, and it's lovely to feel part of it's just feeling like part of a process that's like bigger than yourself, because I guess as a writer usually you're just like, oh, this is my thing, this is my I'm an auteur, darling, or whatever. I've never oh god, that's an awful phrase, but it wasn't like that. It was just like, I'm part of this gang, and it was, people are just doing something in an awful moment in history. So I was just glad it kind of worked out.
It wasn't your first horror thing that you were involved in though, right?
No, so the reason I got that gig was because I was writing on a horror TV show, but also I'd written a horror feature. I think the one we mentioned at the top, I'd written a horror feature script that did well in the Nicol Fellowship, which is like one of those screenwriting course things for anyone who doesn't know. And
it's massive. Don't let them underplay that. The Nicol Fellowship is serious. It's a big thing. It's not a little wavy hand thing. It's a big thing.
No one's heard of the Nicol Fellowship. It's run by the Oscars. Actually, I want to do a shout out for them, because that was that script that I wrote, that horror script. I was one of the top 10 females that year with that script, and they flew us out to LA to like have all these wonderful like we went to a festival and we had all these wonderful like talks from all these incredible like female like speakers, and it just like I learned so much. It felt so good to be nurtured and supported in that way, and trusted. But then, again, it's like America, and it's not Britain. But anyway, off that, Rob Savage, the director, read that script of mine, and that's why he asked me to come on and help with host, basically.
Amazing. But I think host is so big and so been so well received that I think it is a little bit of a turning point. Like now we have lineage, right? We've got, look, this can be done. Can we move the culture on a little bit more, I guess. Sammy, tell us about your exhibition that you've got going on, because I think it's really important for people to hear, representation in the horror genre for Black people of colour in general is like, it's poor. So why is it so important that why was it so important for you to put on this exhibition?
So I started researching for the exhibition in like 2017, because I was just really interested in what had come before, like, because my point of reference at that time was literally like from Blade until now. And the success of Get Out, and the fact that it won a fucking Oscar for like just what the heck, like what, like a black lead, the black person doesn't die for, like all these things, like I was just like, what the hell, like this is mad. And I think it was a point in time where, and still now, where it like opened a massive door. But I think for a lot of like mainstream audiences, I think there was a lot of conversations about, oh, it started with Get Out, and it's like, no, it didn't. So I think it was for me, like, I can make a guess that there's been like, at that point I was like, I can make a guess that there's been a really rich history of Black contribution to horror, and I was right.
Totally. Yeah.
And you know,
I'm just going to show the audience a picture while you're still talking.
And and then horror noir came out, which is based on Robin Means Coleman's book, which is fantastic, of the same name, Horror Noir. And kind of for me, like in my head, like the stars kind of aligned, and I was like, oh well, like this exhibition needs to happen now, because like all these things are happening. And I think for me it was like, I'm so glad that like you all know that we're here, but like we've been here, and this is all the dope shit that we've done. Like it was, and that's literally what the exhibition is. So like it went through like years of like, it went through like a good 2 years of pitching to like museums and stuff like that, like, oh, we're really like interested in it, and then they'd read like the copy and it was all celebratory and not trauma porn, and they'd be like, what like, we didn't think it was going to be this thing. And then like last year I sort of took like a partnership, and it was really bad, and like sort of got taken advantage of, and like they completely turned it into like, they tried to take it away from me and like kept me out the loop, and then were like here's all these white films, like, and it was like, no, like it was like ticking a diversity box, right? Basically. And so they basically wanted to use that exhibition to get Jordan Peele over, which never happened, because I was like, this isn't going to happen, like he doesn't do that. So then they kind of used it as like a diversity tick box thing, and then they tried to put it on the side of like all these white films, and I was like, no. So I had to pull it at the last minute. So this year, now I've got a venue that kind of just wants me to do my own thing. It's happening in August. So I think I'm going to do a big installation, which is like the first scene in Blade with like the blood rave.
Oh, the rave scene.
Like really like immersive, like loads of projection stuff. I've got some amazing artists. Like I've got a photographer. I've got
it's an asylum
gallery in Wolverhampton. So there's going to be like a big installation with like video work, and like I've got an amazing artist, Jazz, who does like photography. And then we're doing, but because of COVID, I'm just like, I don't even know if people are going to want to come out. Like the world's been like Resident Evil.
Oh, hell
like,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. People like, let me out.
So,
people really need to come out though.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think people will like go and see it, but then there's going to be a digital launch party, which will just be like with a DJ for the first night to celebrate it all happening finally. Then we've got a film which is kind of like, it's first person, so it's like a Black woman going through her day-to-day life and just like everything that she sees in the news and whatever, and then she comes across the exhibition, she goes into the exhibition, and then the end of it is like she's inspired to be a filmmaker, and then we're going to slot in all the pieces, like all the art pieces into the film. Then there's going to be like an hour of the history of Black horror, like an educational sort of like piece, and then there'll be a Spotify playlist in case somebody just wants to listen to some tunes.
Get those tunes in. France Lee, who's part of an organisation in Bradford, is saying, bring it to Bradford, France Lee. If you can sort out the funding, we will bring it to Bradford.
Let's do a tour. But yeah, I think
exactly.
I think for me it was so like the history, like what I've learned about the history of Black horror, like it's been so emotional, like of like we've been there since like the 1940s, like so 1940 Son of Ngaji is like one of the first recorded like all Black casts, and to have that like 1940, like we were in black and white like horror films, like oh my god, and like and like going through like the blaxploitation era with like Blackula and like William Marshall's like magnetic.
That used to be one of my emotes on here actually.
Yeah,
like scene where she's like
absolutely like magnetic performance. And then like but even like in the history of black horror, there's been such journeys of like artists fighting for their art, like Bill Gunn and Ganja and Hess, and what he had to go through to for all that to be restored. And it's just one of the most beautiful films that I've ever seen. So I think like the history of black horror is so monumental, and there's been even like so many things it permeates. Like it's not just like horror films, like it's like in Tyler the Creator's music videos, it's in like old 90s hip hop videos, and like hip hop samples, and like the juxtaposition of that as well, that like horror is always controversial and always like, it's breeding violence, but then so is hip hop, and those parallel lines and all these different things, like, and just like as an artist, like going through even just the research for the exhibition and going, oh my God, we're meant to be here. Like, look at all these people.
That
like, you know what I mean?
The validation is important.
And it's just celebrating that. It's just celebrating that we've been here and we've done amazing things in this genre, and we'll carry on doing amazing things.
Yeah.
Sammy, that's exactly why I wanted to do the book, because I wanted people to know that like women have always been working in horror, and if you can see yourself on the screen or like in the credits, and you know there's the history of that, then you feel like, well, maybe there's a place for me. If you never see yourself, and if you're not represented anywhere, how do you ever feel like you've got a chance of doing that? So like the whole point of like, for me, the book, and it sounds like some of it with your exhibition, is to say, we were here, we were always here, and we were doing awesome stuff. And like, if that inspires more people to go out and, you know, make films, make art, write books, then that's fantastic, isn't it?
And that power as well of like history, because I think, especially in like, I think just with women in general, but also like in the black community and the black mixed community, there's always like, the first black mixed person to do this. And I think I think sometimes we get stuck in that, and that can be like, I always said like, I never want to be the first anything, because all my mates will come with me. Like that sounds so lonely to me, of being like, the first whatever. So the power of that, of being like, look at all these people that have come, and all these people that are going to come after you. Like, that was powerful, knowing that like you're not alone and you won't be the first one, because I think that can be really daunting.
Yeah, and then you can also feel like you're going to get the burden of representation, which is like when you speak, you have to speak for an entire community rather than for yourself, which is impossible, and you can't please anyone then, can you?
No.
All right, so we're coming to the end, guys, but before we finish, we have a quiz. The quiz instructions have been up in the chat the whole time. Look at the instructions. You have to be following the channel to be in a chance of winning. You have to use your name, because if you don't have a name, I'm giving it to the person after you. Thank you so much for the follow, Gemmy Kits Fairies.
It's me.
You have the best sounds, Tanya.
I just
All right, so Gem, you're gonna get loads of like Dead by Daylight. That's what I wanted to ask you, Phasmophobia, but we'll talk about that later. All right, so let's start our quiz. Audience, get ready. Guests, you can play along, but you do not win a prize.
Boo! I need to get paper and pen or something.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. All right, we're gonna start now. Okay. You should have rules. It's sending you the rules, audience. Let me know that everything's working right. If not, I will just randomly pull names out of chat. Start game. Here we go. So Michael Myers' mask is actually a mask for what Star Trek character? James T. Kirk, Mr. Spock, Jean-Luc Picard, Scotty. James T. Kirk, Mr. Spock, Jean-Luc Picard, Spotty. Scotty, not Spotty. Who's Spotty? Beam me up, Spotty. Have you got all your answers in, audience? All right. They're on a little bit of a delay, so it takes a little bit of time. I did warn my guest that this quiz is... Maybe we should have done 5 questions. All right, reveal answer. James T. Kirk, 2 people got it right, 3 people got it wrong. Okay, next question. It takes so long, I do apologise.
That's okay.
You're fine.
Next question.
It's the suspense.
I know, I should be playing some music. Which film is typically credited as creating the genre of found footage horror movies? Paranormal Activity, Cloverfield, Cannibal Holocaust, The Blair Witch Project. Which film created the genre of found footage? Paranormal Activity, Cloverfield, Cannibal Holocaust, The Blair Witch Project.
Feel better because at least I know the answer to that one.
Didn't you know?
I know which one actually started it, but I don't know, like, in the mainstream, which one's credited.
Yeah, that's what I wasn't sure.
I was like, wait, are you talking about which one actually did it?
I do have some tricky ones. All right, so 2 people got it right, 4 people got it wrong. Okay, the answer was Cannibal Holocaust.
Yes.
Such a good film.
Good work.
I've still not seen it yet. It's on my list.
Don't watch it when you're in a good mood.
Oh god!
Did they kill an animal in it or something?
That's why
that was the one of the things that he Deodato genuinely regrets about that film, and he says
they
it
went
all
to court, didn't they? They went to court to prove that it wasn't real.
Yeah, because what he did, this is genius. So what he did was he put a clause in the contracts for the actors that they couldn't be seen in public for a year. So the actors were like, oh, okay, cool, like we'll lay low and whatever. And then like this film came out, it was completely controversial. It was like this genre that had never been done before. They were like, oh God, what if this is actually a tape? What if this is real? He went to court and then the actors showed up and were like, no, like it's a film, like whatever.
Did kill the animal.
Yeah, did call. So he was acquitted, but then the really interesting thing was they were just fuming. They were like, I can't believe this filmmakers duped us. So then it became like this thing about like...
That's the original trolling, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're on to question 4, which is who is the villain of the original Friday the 13th movie? Diana Kimball, Elias Voorhees, Pamela Voorhees, Jason Voorhees.
Ooh,
I love Jason so much.
Just a sneaky question.
I know.
Sneaky. But only if you've not watched Scream.
I've not watched Friday the 13th.
True.
You've not, or I won't watch it now. It's because it won't be appreciated if you watch it now. But I love it.
I'm going on a retro film watching thing at the moment, though. I can add to the list.
Yeah, I'm well into my 80s slashers at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm watching a lot of them. My Bloody Valentine, so good.
Yes.
Slasher film set in a mine. Like,
It's
what
really
more
good.
do you want?
Oh, it sounds terrifying.
Who did Captain Elliot Spencer become? Pinhead, Lawnmower Man, Slender Man, Jigsaw.
Ooh,
Oh, no.
Tanya. Oh, I don't know.
If you come on, you saw my Halloween outfit.
Oh yeah. Thanks. I know this one now.
He's my nemesis. I can't get away from him. He's my nemesis. Pinhead.
What I do love about meeting other horror creators, though, like the nice horror creators, is that we're all like this. We're like, yeah, we watch horror movies, but the details, we don't give a shit.
All right, we're halfway through. We're nearly there.
That's what Wikipedia's for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Like, go
And Alison's book.
Yeah.
And Alison's book, which is available on all book sites. Finish the quote. All work and no play makes Johnny a dull boy, makes Judy a dull girl, makes Jack a dull boy, makes Danny a dull boy.
Oh, okay,
good.
yeah. I was like, oh, that's a long quote. What is this?
Everybody in chat, if you're not playing the quiz, can you please buy Alison's book or a subscription to Shudder so that you can stream host, or hit Sammy up so that you can get to the exhibition, please. Thank you. And the answer is, what film is it from? Can anybody remember?
Isn't it from The Shining?
Yeah.
4 people got it right. I'm proud of you, chat. I'm proud of you. All right, next question. Next question. Twitch really need to make this quiz faster. What is the name of the demon from The Exorcist? Belphegor, Azazel, Pazazu, Leviathan. Belphegor, Azazel, Pazazu, Leviathan. This is quite an easy one.
I love The Exorcist. I also love the third one, which should have been the sequel. Like oh my god, the third one is so good. Like the second one's kind of okay, but the third one is like stellar.
We should do horror film watch along on Twitch. Just saying.
Yes, we absolutely should.
Well, we can do anything that's on Amazon. We can stream on Twitch, absolutely. Anything that's not, we do it in the Discord. So if you want to watch like naughty ones, you can do it in the Discord. And when I say naughty, I just mean like.
What do you mean?
Pirate ones.
I mean, I don't mean pirated. I just mean.
No, blur that out. I didn't mean that.
In Rosemary's Baby, what type of that sounds awful, doesn't it? Naughty one. I just mean ones that are not on Amazon.
Like what?
In Rosemary Baby,
The mind boggles.
what is the root in Rosemary's Baby? What is the root?
I know this.
Jezebel root, licorice root, tannis root.
Oh,
I saw it
I
recently.
love this film so much. Oh my god, it's one of my favourites.
I love it. It's my kind of horror. It has to be said.
Yeah,
like
weird.
wuss horror.
I like gothic, like anything that's like demon.
Big on the occult. I love a possession.
Yeah.
I love, a demonic presence.
like obviously this is like a safe space where like the horror super nerds aren't here.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I can't be hung, drawn, and quartered for this. But I literally watched The Omen this year, like the original one, and I was like.
That was filmed where I used to live.
This is one of like the scariest films I've ever seen. And the little boy, and he's like, I was just like,
it's horrifying.
Cemetery's little boy's worse when he's like, no fair.
I rewatched Pet Sematary recently, and he is the creepiest thing on earth. He really is.
I watched Pet Sematary. It makes me feel quite ill. Like all the Anyway,
it's unsettling.
Has anybody seen anything for Jackson?
No.
I've heard good things.
I recommend it. It's very simple, but it still manages to shock. I thought it was great.
It's going on the list. I've got my pen and paper. It's going on the list.
Last question, guys. Last question, chat. Make sure you are present and active.
Does anyone remember like that like phase in like the early noughties where like every single horror film was like dead like dimly lit, and there was like loads of like detective
every film
films.
was dimly lit in the noughties.
Yeah, like and there was like detective films, and there was this one called Fear.com. Has anyone seen it?
I don't remember.
No, but I've heard of it.
Oh my god! So it's like this film about this it was like done in like 2001 or 2, and it's this film about a website that's on like the dark web, and it's like a red room. So like this guy kidnaps women, and then people log on, and they like vote on like how they die and like all this stuff, and like one of them, and they all die according to what they're most afraid of, sort of thing. And it's like the detectives are like following this like the trail and whatever, and then one of them logs onto the site, and they're like, oh no, you logged onto the site, you're gonna die, like, and all this stuff. Like, so like there's this site that's like possessed by the ghost of one of the women, and I was just amazing. Like, it's such a good film. I think it's on Netflix, like, and I remember watching it years ago, and it's just one of those films where I'm just like, I love it. Like, nobody can talk shit about it. Like, it's a shit film, obviously, but nobody can talk shit about it. Same as 13 Ghosts. Like, nobody can say anything to me about 13 Ghosts.
I love 13 Ghosts. The original. All right, so Chevy the Superstar, you won the limited edition Blu-ray copy of that's on its way to America. To contestant number 10.
That's me.
You were second.
That was me.
And you... Jem, you know what?
Is that you?
Dr. Alison, can let Gemma win that book, right?
Yeah.
No, we can do that. It's my show. I can do what I want. You can. Gemma Hurley is the winner of the book Women Make Horror.
Yes.
I just want to
like
finish
a mutiny
on
in the chat. Like, I can't believe this.
I know.
I'm sorry, guys.
Chat. Don't hate me. I just want to. If you've got any like last comments that you want to make, please just gather them now. I just want to give this last little concluding quote from Dr. Alison's book. And I think this is why I want everybody to buy it, whether you're a woman, you're a man, you're non-binary, whatever. This book is for all those people, regardless of gender, who love horror but don't see themselves represented, either in the industry gatekeepers or in the filmmakers discussed in standard horror histories or in the critics who write about the genre. The book is for everyone who still feels that they have to create their own horror histories from scratch and are exhausted by the prospect. You do not have to feel alone anymore. I just thought that's I'm gonna cry. It's so lovely to end on. Any last comments from you guys?
Well, it's just nice to see everyone looking all pleased at my little heartfelt thing in my book.
It's a great book. It's great. Thank you so much.
So glad I want it.
Yeah, I think we need to get away from like we're gate kept enough. So like we don't need to gatekeep each other, and I think I just really want to see people come together and just work together for the love of horror. Like remember that we all love this, and that, you know, nobody knows more, that like it doesn't matter who knows more, like all these things. Like we all love horror, we should all work together and just put something out into the world that's made with like genuine love.
Yeah.
That's my
here.
That's my 50p.
I think someone in the chat earlier was asking you about gatekeepers, Sammy. Gosh, what to say? I feel like we've only just started this conversation.
I know. And chat, there's so many questions, but I will have this chat left over after this. So any questions, I will email the guys and hopefully get you some answers. But yeah, sorry.
I don't have any wonderful words of philosophical or beautiful wisdom that these two have, but love to keep the conversation going. I think it's a really important conversation. I can't remember what your handles are on Twitter and things like that. Like, but we should all let's continue this on Twitter and Instagram. I don't know. Oh God.
Because also, like my next exhibition, I want it to be women in horror, so we can all work together.
Amazing.
Completely.
Forward thinking. All right, chat, you've been amazing. We are gonna go raid Shogun Ash. He is playing some Jackbox games, so it's a little bit quizzy, a little bit like same vibe as we've been doing now. I want you to type into Ash's chat this little. Why is raids not working? Please don't do this to me now.
Oh, technology.
It's been doing this the whole time. It's not. All right, so I'm going to host. So I'm going to host Ash. Thank you so much for the follow. Please copy and paste that. He will understand what's happened. I'm having a rest now after Women's History Month, but I will be playing Dead by Daylight because I'm addicted, and Mafia, and we'll still be getting into some Phasmo and all that stuff. So let me go host Ash now. Hold on, where is it? Thank you so much for the follow. Make sure you tell him I sent you, and make sure you tell him that he could never beat me in Dead by Daylight. Good night.